What's going on, everyone? It's Zach with the Wicked Heavy Podcast. And in today's episode, I sit down with my dude, Justin Nace. And I met Justin when I was working at SJC. Of course, he was drumming for the band Paris at the time. I even dropped one of his actually current kit off to him at a show in Rhode Island. And then, from then on, we would be in contact about drums and stuff. He came out to the NAMM show in 2020. Stayed with us, was doing some photography for the booth, and then we became homies. And he's such a great guy. I really wanted to get him on the show because we had some heart to hearts about some breakdowns during that NAMM week. And Nace he's just a man, so fun to talk to, and so much musical experience and stories to share. I mean, everything from, of course, how we got into music. His dad was a huge influence, hair metal, all that good stuff, to discovering Blink, wanting to go on tour, and then telling me what his favorite coffee spot is in Japan, because the dude is well-traveled. So, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. But I hope you all enjoy this conversation with Justin Nace on the Wicked Heavy Podcast. All right, Justin, my dude, thank you so
good
much.
To see you.
Oh, dude, I know.
I feel like it has been ages since I've actually had the chance to see you.
I think it was NAMM 2020, right?
Yes. Yep.
Dude. And you know what's funny? I was listening to After the Burial today, the Fractal Effect, because I remember we were just like kind of talking about that song that like we're in the Airbnb and you're like, that song's like bow down down the bow down down. And I just remember being like, oh.
That's so funny that you bring it up, because I even thought about like before like getting on here, I was just like, I feel like I was coined something a long time ago, but one of my friends, Booka, because they had toured with After the Burial, and she was just like, oh, it's called like a porno riff, and I was just like, that's insane. And then yes, they have it. There's she used to be in Make Them Suffer, so my friends in Make Them Suffer, they just put out a new album on Friday. It rips, but like their last album and this one, what I would consider to be like a porno riff like that, it's just like the coolest, so out of pocket, normal, like kind of odd, obscure riff,
sick.
And I love it. There's even there's another band too. We're just getting right into heavy stuff, but there's another band called Carried Weight. That another one has a very similar. Like if I could make a playlist of those style, like they'd all be in there.
Dude,
but like After Burial was that first one that I'd ever heard that I was like, bro, that thing's nuts. I love it.
That's that breakdown that comes on right after that. I'm just like, that band for me, and we'll probably get there, but I don't know. Yeah. It's hard for me to find breakdowns I like more than After the Burials, truly.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get enough.
That's awesome. Love it.
Yes, dude. I've been looking forward to this. It has been a long time, and we had such a good time at that NAMM. So for those listening, Justin and I and a bunch of other homies were out at NAMM 2020. This is when I was working for SJC, and he came and he was photographing for the SJC booth as an SJC artist, which was super fun. We had an awesome time, and we talked about metal and breakdowns and a whole bunch of fun stuff that week. So.
I found out that you're an absolute maniac on Mario Kart. That I was nobody could beat you. You're an animal. So
dude,
that like blew my mind, because I was like, I'll try Mario Kart. Like I never grew up as a Nintendo kid. And then I was like, you destroyed everyone, no matter how hard we tried.
And for those listening again, like the secret to Mario Kart is drifting. If you learn how to drift, you can beat a lot of people. If you learn how to drift well.
I literally have taken that from you. You're the one that taught me that. And then ever since then, I've gone on the few times that I've played it with like Jay and his wife. And I was just like, what's going on? And I'm like, my man taught me how to do it. I was like, Zach taught me how to drift, and it's the key to winning success.
100%. That's funny, dude. Unreal. All right, so you are flying out tomorrow morning bright and early. Where are you going, and what have you been up to, bro?
It's been a busy year for sure. Tomorrow, I'm actually, just for fun, I'm going down to Brazil with my girlfriend, so I'm doing that for a week.
Nice.
But so this is like my second trip of the year that's not work related. But the majority of this year has been pretty busy. Pretty much February on up until like the very beginning of September. Then I was like, cool, I should have most of September off. But then that changed very quickly where it was like, well, I had a festival the following weekend. Then I got asked to fill in the following weekend after that. And it just like, I've just kind of been
Unreal.
grinding, you know,
Yeah.
it's a good thing. It's a blessing. You know, I'm very thankful that I've had the opportunities that I've had, you know, but this is
Yeah.
just, it's been a weird year of just like kind of, you know, keeping it going and filling all the gaps as much as I can and just keeping myself busy.
Nice, dude.
But yeah, so it's
So a
been
mix
good.
of teching and touring.
Yeah, I did a little bit of playing this year.
Nice.
Most of it's been teching. Like I just got back from, I just was out for like a 2 week stint with the opener Griff on the Sabrina Carpenter tour. So that
Oh,
was the most
wow.
recent thing that we did. So yeah, she had like
Sick.
3 different openers, and we were kind of in the middle of it there. So
Whoa.
flew home on Halloween, so I've been home for the last couple days, just been like enjoying it. But yeah, so
Nice,
that was the
dude.
most recent thing that I just got back from, which is great. It was a really
Were
good time.
arenas?
Yeah, yep. So we hit
Wow.
most of like the basketball, hockey stadiums. So like we
Yeah.
started in Bridgestone, which is great because I'm in Nashville now. So I was able to just
Oh, okay.
drive 10 minutes down the road, and first day one was there. So it started from
Wow.
there. I didn't have to fly out. It was beautiful. So it worked
Yeah.
out well. Yeah,
No kidding, dude.
but yeah,
That's
it was a really good time.
wow. That's epic, man. And then filling in who you playing with these days.
Um, the last show I played was back in um the very beginning of October.
Okay.
I had did a fill it in for a girl named Chloe Starr. She's an LA artist,
Cool.
and I'd gotten asked. It was like, hey, we have a one-off show in Nashville. Would you want to do it? So said yeah. So and it was cool. But like, you know,
Nice.
one of those things where it was like I didn't meet her prior to the day of show. It was just like learned it on my own. I was sent like a
Yeah.
set list, learned the set list, and then day of show. Hello, nice to meet you, and ran it twice, and then went right for it. So
Wow.
that was the last time that I got to play. And then earlier this year, I did a run filling in for my buddy Phil and his band called Worlds for Cinema. They're on
Cool.
Fearless Records.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
did like a smaller run supporting Taylor Acorn back in like April into May. So finally got to
Sick.
sit back behind the kid again, you know, amongst a lot of the
Yeah.
teching stuff that I've been doing lately,
Wow.
which is really nice. But it was fun. I mean, like we just back in a Sprinter van, you know, just back to the shit, but like really had a
Yeah.
good time of just, you know, getting to play and just have a good time with my friends. So
Yeah,
it's great.
dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nashville.
Yeah.
How long have you been there for now?
I moved here last February, so
Okay.
it'll be, you know, a little over a year and a half now.
Yeah.
It's been good. I really enjoy it. You know, we spent when I was with Paris, we used to have we'd rehearse there. We had a storage unit here, so we spent a lot of time coming down here, you know, prior to tours and stuff for rehearsals. And yeah, I mean, like watched the city change so much over the years, especially since like from the first time I had come down here to visit compared to now, it's just changed exponentially. You know, lots of new development, and the city's totally changed. And I mean, that's goes for pretty much most cities, but this one substantially because it was such a small town city, you know.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of been put on the map, not only for music, but
Of course.
you know, bachelor parties, bachelorette kind of things,
Yep.
that kind those shindigs. So, you know, it's been good, man. I've been very much enjoying it, even though I'm more of a recluse recently. Just kind of stay home and enjoy, you know, an apartment that I'm actually that I'm paying for that I never get to enjoy because I'm gone most of the time. So
yeah,
but it's been good, man.
that's cool. When did you first ever visit Nashville? Do you remember the year?
Probably it was either 2015 or 2016.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we had come out for like the smaller NAMM, Mike and I, and we like.
Okay, yeah, they do like the summertime one or whatever.
Yeah, summer NAMM, and it was my first time meeting Jay, which was he picked us up, and then we went to this cool coffee shop in like what is it, East Nashville? Like
that's where I'm at. Yep.
Sick. And we went to Tacos Por Favor.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I haven't been back since, but I remember being like, wow, this is way more of a city than I thought it would be. Like the skyscrapers and stuff. I always thought it would be more like farms and stuff.
Yeah.
No offense, Nashville people. I don't know if you like that or not, but yeah, it was cool. I was like, wow, this is wild. It was a good time.
Yeah, that's a really good. It's that's actually how I met Jay years ago. Was we were just rehearsing and we were at a coffee shop before practice, and we were
Yeah.
sat there, and at the time it was like his ex-girlfriend had like recognized us, and she was like, "Hey, are you guys Paris?" And we're like,
That's cool.
"Yeah," and like nobody knows, we're like we were new at the time, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh yeah, like myself and my boyfriend are like really big fans of you guys," and he plays for a band called Slipknot, and we're all like, "Yeah, we know Slipknot,"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's like, "Hey, can he come here and meet you guys?" And our manager was like, "Well, we're gonna go to like we have to head rehearsals. We got a time frame, but if he wants to stop by there, he could come and say hello." And he did, And then him and
Cool.
I hit it off. So like that's how we met. Was just
Wow.
we'd hang whenever we were in Nashville. He came to our Airbnb to hang once, and then like every time he was in Philly, I'd go see his shows, and then when I was in Nashville, he'd come to our shows, and
Yeah.
that's how we kind of became friends in the beginning. So we've just known each other for years.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what's funny? Real quick, a funny story. No one else knows this.
Uh-huh.
The night before Summer NAMM, Mike was putting together one of Jay's first like 48 plies, like the painted one, in the Airbnb, and our Airbnb was right next to Jack White's what's it called, record label, Third Man Records.
Third Man,
Yeah, it was a cool Airbnb. The Butcher was with us from like I forget what was the Butcher's band.
The Academy is.
It was, right?
Yeah.
So he's with us. He's staring at Airbnb. Mike forgot like one of the tools to like hold the bolts, like the very small tool. So he was like using 2 butter knives to like hold the bolts on the inside of the snare. So it was just ridiculous, bro. But he got it together.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah.
I
Good
love
times. That's cool, man. Well, safe travels tomorrow. That's sick. I've never been to Brazil.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Word. Well,
yeah.
My bro, on this podcast, we like to take it back many, many years. I want to hear your story, dude. How did you ever get into music as a wee lad? And do you remember the moment? Do you remember what it was? Take me there.
I mean, I wouldn't say I necessarily have like a definitive moment of when I remember exactly what got me into music, but it was definitely through my parents' love of music. My dad, especially, he was a guitar player, and from a young age, he, there's photos of me as like a baby in a little crib and him just sat there with his Les Paul just playing guitar,
That's cool.
And I grew up, watching him. So it was just like they'd always play their friends' parties and get-togethers for whether it be, New Year's or summer, bash kind of things. And my dad's band would play. So at a young age, I was the one that was always there, running around, watching those guys practice and, going to his practices during the weeks and whatnot. And definitely like kind of what hooked me, and him as a guitar player, my brother kind of followed in his footsteps. And in our old band, he played bass and guitar and whatnot. And I don't know, I just always like, I fell in love with the drums, and his drummer Dougie at the time, it was just like, wow, that was just like something very cool for me. It was just like watching him play, and it just kind of drew me in. I just really liked the drums, and that's just what kind of like hooked me there. And, my mom, growing up in our area, like we were just outside of Philadelphia. So like growing up, she knew the band, like the people in Cinderella. So like, I got into hair metal at a very young age, because like we used to go. So Eric Brinningham, the bass player, like when I was little, we used to go on like vacation in Jersey with his family and our family because he had 2 daughters that were around my brother and my age. So we used to do like family vacations together with those guys. So like, she was always in the music and grew up, in the Philadelphia, Jersey scene of like going to shows and all that stuff. And my dad was a musician. So I kind of just fell into it. It was like a family affair kind of thing.
That's badass, man. So was, I guess, rock and roll then was maybe like some of the first stuff you heard.
Yeah. Growing up, I mean, obviously everything from, 38 Special and like that kind of like the bluesy rock and roll. My dad was all into that stuff. And just like, I think the first band that he had ever seen was, oh my goodness, now I'm spacing on it. But we're an American band.
Grand Funk Railroad?
Grand Funk Railroad, yes.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, so like all that kind of stuff, and I mean, throughout like middle school and high school, I got big into like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that's what all my friends listened to, from the Stones and all that kind of stuff, Clapton. But obviously I always was gravitated toward like the hair metal as well, because that's like what my mom and my parents were into, so it's just like grew up with AC/DC and Metallica and Motley Crue and, obviously Cinderella and Rat.
So
like my first concert.
I love Rat, man.
Yeah. My first concert I ever went to was Cinderella, Quiet Riot, Rat, and Firehouse. So it was the four of those guys.
Bro.
Yeah. So that was like the first
I
like
have
big concert.
goosebumps. I
Yeah.
have goose. Wait a minute.
So
Take me there, bro. Like, how
yeah.
old were you, and what was the venue?
It was called, I think now it's called Santander Arena. It's like out in Reading,
Oh
which like
wow,
we've done that one with Slipknot. It's like a B market kind of
yeah,
place. And at the time,
dude.
I was maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12, give or take. And my mom, she knew the guys, so it was like, cool, we're going to see Cinderella play. So I was a young kid, and we got to like go up onto the bus and sit with them
Come
and
on,
watch
dude.
them like argue about Pop Tarts, in their
What
older
year was
age. And
this?
I mean, it had to have been, if I was 12, it would have been like 2002,
Wow,
so it would have been because,
dude.
yeah, so I was fairly young, but like still remembered it all. And like I was
Yeah.
into it, because I grew up on that stuff. So
Oh, dude.
that was like my first like real like actual concert, besides going to like Croc Rock in Allentown, seeing, smaller bands kind
Yeah.
of thing. Prior to that, like I remember
That's
my
so
cousin taking me one
sick.
time, and that ended up being the venue that like my brother and I just like lived at, because,
Yeah.
trying to get into the music realm and stuff and playing shows, that was like the kind of the local, establishment that everybody
Yeah.
played and all the touring acts came through.
Wow. Do you know the band Queensryche?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dude, that was my first
Yeah.
concert. I was
Oh,
5.
really?
Yeah. It was
That's awesome.
1995, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, I love,
That's
dude,
so
hair
funny.
metal. It's so funny. Like sometimes people, like my wife doesn't really like 80s stuff, but it's
Mm-hmm.
okay because I love my wife. But I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
how can you not like that? It's so good, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh,
definitely something where it's it's tough because it's the same thing. It's definitely like a generational thing. Even
yeah.
like my girlfriend, she loves pop music. Taylor Swift's her thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
loves it, and like there's stuff that like I'll try to show and it's just like not interested, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those where it's like some people love it and you could name a band and people are like, ooh, yo,
Yeah.
I remember, and then they're into it and you're like, wow, like I didn't think
Yeah.
anybody else liked them because it's very niche or
Oh,
whatever it would be, but I grew up on that stuff, so it's
yeah,
something
man.
that I loved.
My dad would blast monster ballads in his car on CD. Dude,
Yep, definitely had
I'm
had
so into 80s
an
hair
iteration of
ballads.
those. Yep.
Jeez, dude. Yeah,
I mean, I've
epic.
got like the '80s hair metal like Christmas albums that I rock every
Dude,
year. Because they're the
hell
best.
yeah, dude. That's awesome. Thank God. I love it. That's cool, man. All right, so at a young age, you're like rock and roll and you already know you want to play drums. Wow. And when did you first get your first drum set then?
I got my first kit. I think I was probably like 6. It was a
Oh,
kit that my
wow. Okay.
dad like gone down in the basement and on a Christmas day, and like he had put together this like jelly bean kit of just all different kinds of,
Sick.
like through his band sticker on the front
Yeah.
head,
Oh,
and then
wow.
it was like a red tom, a black tom, a red kick, and that was my first kit, and that's
Yep.
what like made me like, all right, this is awesome. What I fell in love with it. But I don't think I took it like, there was a couple years there where it's like you're noodling around, but at 6 years old, you just have like
Yeah.
energy all over. So you're trying every sport, and my brother and I were big into all the sports. We played football,
Cool.
basketball, baseball and stuff. So, not until I was maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 12 where I
All
actually
right.
really like took it seriously. Where I actually was like, all right, I'm trying to learn to play that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because when I was younger, I went to take, I'm left-handed.
Right.
So it's such a like, it's a crutch that I've lived with my entire life as a left-handed drummer, because I can't go into a Guitar Center and rip on a kit because it's always
Right.
set up righty. Or like anytime I've toured with
Yeah.
people and be like, yo, come up and play a song, and I'm like, like I've only done it once with the Beartooth dudes because it
Yeah.
was a song I could play open hand when we're in Europe, and I was like, all
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it. And he had double bass, so it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I could make it happen.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
simplified enough. But most of the time, it's just never a thing. Or I was like growing up when we're using house kits, I
Yeah.
was the bane of every audio engineer's existence because I
Right.
was like, I'm sorry, but I have to swap everything, and they're just like, and they're swapping the microphone. So when I was like 8, I went to take lessons, and the guy wouldn't teach me unless I was to switch righty. So at that time, being a young
Hmm.
8-year-old kid, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing that, So I was like, no. So I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, I wish I would have, because then I feel like I would have had a better, I don't know, understanding of everything and whatnot. But I just decided to teach myself, So I
Yeah.
just used to throw the AC/DC CDs in there and Nirvana and shit and just play along to CDs that way in the basement, and I'd just blast it real loud, and I'd sit down there and just play over top of it.
Damn right.
And the other thing too, I mean, like even when I was younger too, the drummer for Hanson, he was lefty. He was Zach, which he was also an SJC guy, and I remember him being lefty, and that was just like, all right, well, if he could do it, then it's like I'm not like some total obscure oddball. Like there are other lefties.
The
it's just very
drummer too.
Also lefty. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only I remember the drummer for Knuckle Puck when we played Warped Tour, he was a lefty. And then when we toured with Muse, when we opened up for those guys, Dominic is left-handed. And I remember the first day he walked up and was like, "That's Paris. Oh, is he a lefty? Oh, that's great." You know, it was just like, oh, like he noticed. He saw that I'm lefty. It was like, oh, so we had that like mutual bond of being like, I'm not the only one. Yeah. Which is funny now because everybody I've teched for are all righty. But at the time, Jeremy, who owned Q Drums, he was teching for Dom, and he was teching on a lefty kit, being a righty guy. But I used to love watching those guys. They had like it was called the Crew Fighters, was their little like crew jam band. So every day they would just go out there and rip like a Led Zeppelin song, and they call themselves the Crew Fighters. And he was a righty drumming on a lefty kit. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, man. I think
so that's kind of where it started for me, in terms of just, a household of music, and just kind of got into it that way. But with the like drumming, I definitely started taking it seriously more so when I was like maybe like 12 years old, give or take, when I was like, ooh, I want to do this.
Okay.
And then eventually found Blink-182. And, Blink was the band that kind of like, it was just made me want to be in a band. With my brother and I just like goofing around in the basement. It was like, cool, like let's do it, and just like our first band was maybe when I was in like 8th or 9th grade, like we started making a band. But yeah, so I mean, like Blink was the one that made me like, all right, because I just used to sit there and watch them, and they were goofballs, and watch the videos of them touring and being like, God, like that's what I want to do. I just want to have fun with my friends and just goof around and play music, and then you get to like travel. So that's kind of where it started for me, and like, all right, this is something I definitely, care a lot about and want to do. To the point where then eventually once we get into high school and you start doing more shows, and I was still playing like baseball, I played through high school. Wow. But then it got to the point where playing baseball, then I'd have to like miss a game because we had a show, and then have like our coach being like, "Oh, big rock stars over here can't come up for their game. They got a rock show." And then like now it's just like, it's funny because now like I know my mom has run into them back home and like has explained to them what I'm doing now and whatnot, and it's like they've seen the fact that I've traveled the world playing music, and like I did take it seriously. So it's kind of cool,
big
like
rock show.
Big rock stars over here. I used to give my brother. My brother at the time had long hair, so he used to get made fun of for that shit too. And it's just like,
that's dude. But that's hilarious. Oh my god. So wait a minute. What was your dad's band's name first?
So his first band was called 2+2.
Cool.
They had a cool ass 2+ with like, and then 2 logo. Nice. Growing up, and then eventually it turned into Last Hand.
Nice.
With a couple other members and stuff that they had, but then like before my dad had passed, like shortly after we got back from NAMM that year.
Man, I'm sorry.
But I got to see, like in 2016, I think it was, they had done some like, they put together a show, my dad had a lot of health complications, and he really like couldn't go through stuff, and like had a difficulty being able to like even just stand for a long time with like a heavy ass guitar. And eventually worked himself up to the point where they were able to like come back, and they played a show at a place like when I was a little kid they used to do all the time called the Wagon Wheel.
Cool.
Back like out like in Quakertown, PA. And like it was awesome getting to watch him play, again with him and his like friends, like Kenny and Eddie, his bass player, and Kenny was like his best man in his wedding. So like, I've known those, I grew up, with those guys, just being around at all the family functions and parties and stuff. So it was like, made me happy that I got to see, that was like cool, the last time that I got to see him play, but so that's where that whole thing started, with those guys.
Yeah. It sounds like he got you into music, or it was like a huge part. That's cool, man. Shout out Mr. Nace. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, man. And then your band with your brother that you started playing shows, what was that called?
Mm-hmm. It was like the worst name ever. It was like one of those ones where it was like you'd say it and you'd be like, and they'd be like, "What?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
it start like we had a show. We had a show in like ninth grade, and we
Okay.
were doing this like concert at the high school, and it was like, well, what are your guys' names? Like, well, we don't have one. And the guy was like, all right, well, if you don't have a name, he's like a total dick, and he's just like, we'll just call you Dirty Fingernails. And we're like, fuck you, dude. Like, what? No. And then I remember our guitar player at the time was just like joking. We're looking for names, and he's just like Hiccup Helen and the Canyon Yodel Club, and we're like, that's fucking stupid. But then like we're like, well, it was like Hiccup Helen. No one's got that name. So, and that's what ended up sticking. And then we had like
Wait.
Hiccup
Helen.
Yeah. But it was like hell with two L's. So it was like CCLL. Dude, it was such a terrible name. But, because like
sick, actually,
we played like pop punk music / like kind of heavier stuff with like cool guitar, like rock and roll.
It's fun
riffs.
to say. I like it.
Yeah, but it was just like you're trying to be taken seriously, and people see that name and they're like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah.
But eventually, my brother, when he started playing acoustic shows, he came up with one that he continued to use our HH and was like Hopeless Habits, and I was like, that would have been way better. We should have just but. It is what it is. And we had t-shirts at the time, and we're like 16 and being like, well, we got all these t-shirts we made. We can't change the name now.
Do you have one still?
So I definitely have them somewhere for sure. I know there's definitely some my brother's got and probably at my parents' house yet. But yeah, I mean, like that's where we started playing like local shows and stuff. And then we would do Battle of Bands. And there was 2 years that we won the Battle of Bands. So we got to play like the Vans Warped Tour in Philly. So like that's kind of what got us into that, and then like, because that was always the dream. It's like, oh man, when you're younger, you're like, I want to do, of course, I used to go there every year just to watch, and it was like the best part of the year. So I think we played it in 2008 and 2010, just at the Philly date, so it's a blast, so
that's so sick,
that's where that started. And we did that for a bunch of years. And then in 2011, I got offered to play for a band called Versa Emerge. They were like from Florida, on Fueled by Ramen, and spent like a year and a half. I was working at Best Buy and being like, I'm getting the hell out of this place. This place sucks. Like, I'll see you guys later. Just like waiting, because it was like, all right, well, we have something lined up for this time. And, met those guys, had a great time, kind of just gearing up for stuff. And then shit would get pushed back. And then like, oh, we're not going to do this. We're going to wait on this. Right. And then eventually, like after a year and a half, they're just like, this project's essentially going to get like shelved. Fuel Buy is not going to be doing it anymore. And I was just like devastated. I was like, that was my opportunity, the golden chance, and it's gone. Right. But then ended up just going down to Florida with my buddy Brett just for vacation. And on the last day before we went home, I stopped at Blake, who was the guitar player for the band. And at the time, he was actually, the following week, he's like, hey, I'm going to be, producing this record for this band called Paris. They're coming down next week. They don't have a drummer. Like, you should do like a little like audition video or something. And that's how it started. So I just did that. And, their management was also managing Paris. And that's how like kind of just steamrolled from there. And then, so like that was kind of all around the same time. And same with like 2011 was when I got my first SJC kit. And that was back at the old shop. That was like, I guess just outside of where, I don't know, I'm trying to think. It was in Dudley, I guess. When it was, And kind of history from there. But that's kind of where it all started, from like going from like the local band we had there to like, okay, here's an opportunity to do, like a US tour with this band, and it will be like, we'll see where it goes, and if everything goes well, then you'll be in the band. And then that's where it started with us. And then so I don't think any of us,
networking your ass off.
So like 2014 was the first tour I did with Paris. And then I don't think any of us, that record came out that year in 2014, like November of 2014, and all of us, I remember being in Seattle getting the box of those CDs for the first day and be like, well, we'll see, I don't think any of us realized the trajectory we were about to be on for the next 3 years.
Crazy.
So and that's kind of where that then shifted into that.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Wild story. Back, so like, you said like Blink was the band that kind of like transforms how you thought about touring and music. You're like, I got to do this. I want to do this. Were you like pop punk, listening to like mostly pop punk too? Or were you still listening to like the 80s stuff? Like what
It
was your
was a mix of all of that,
Yeah.
like obviously you kind of get it because it's like in that phase between like my 12 and like 17 year, it's like I had a lot of friends that we all grew up listening to like classic rock, and that's what we used
Yeah.
to ride around, and it was also like, but then you had that skater, like my brother was a skateboarder, I was into
Okay.
BMX.
Oh,
So
sick.
all my friends used to like, we'd take trips, we'd go super early to go down to FDR Park in Philly, and we'd drive our bikes in his little S10 truck, and we'd go and ride the
Tight.
skate park before it got super crowded, and like we used to
Yeah.
just ride BMX all over the place, and like, you watch all the BMX edits and the skateboard
Yeah.
videos, so you kind of learn a lot of the pop music and the pop punk stuff from like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater
Oh,
is an
dude.
essential playlist. Like that thing is that like formed me in terms of like learning all these bands from like Suicidal Tendencies and like all that kind of stuff, and Pooley, and it's all those guys.
Yeah.
Bad Religion. So it's like you
Of
learned a
course.
lot about the punk music through skating and
Yeah.
video games and that kind of stuff. Or even I remember like Burnout 3 was a
Bro.
racing game, and that had the most epic.
It was like Warped Tour, like
Yeah,
classics.
like Newfound Glory and
Dude.
Rise Against. Like there was some like
Sugar Cult.
bands. Yeah, like dude, that was like such a good playlist on a video game. It like
That's
blew my
the
mind.
best one too.
Yeah,
That game.
and I'm so glad that you know it. What
Dude,
I'm talking about, because it was just
crushed
crazy.
that game, and
Yeah.
the music was so good. Wow! Shout out Burnout 3, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Wow.
so long ago, but like
that was
yeah,
Takedown.
that one, like,
Burnout 3
yeah,
Takedown. Oh, dude,
it's like it stuck with me.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So like all of that, but as well as keeping a lot of that classic rock and like the heavy metal stuff in my back pocket.
Hell
I
yeah,
love that kind of stuff as well.
So you're like outside of Philly. Were you going to Philly for like local shows mostly though?
Yeah,
Philly's heavy, man. Philly has a heavy scene
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we have like growing up, it was like there was a few of those bands that were like the big ones from like you had like Circa Survive and Saves the Day, which were all like the Doylestown, Philadelphia area.
Okay.
Like they were the big names, that were like in the kind of like the pop punk, like alternative scene, and you're like, all right, so there are some bands that have made it out of here, and the Starting Line and those kind of guys that had all that. And then eventually the Wonder Years, like when I was in high school, the Wonder Years were starting to take off, and those guys then blossomed into a huge band. And like, so because I had like my old roommate at the time went to high school with those guys. So it was just like all around that same kind of area.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of like, we used to play a lot in Allentown, which is just north of Philadelphia, kind of in and around that area, the tri-state area. But yeah, anytime going to shows, driving down to Philly to see like, Blink-182 or, Yellow Card and Newfound Glory down in Philly at like the TLA or Union Transfer and stuff.
That's sick.
Or the Trocadero before it got like taken down.
Trocadero.
Yeah.
Wow. I went to Philly once. And I was there for rock. It was one of those Danny Wimmer festivals, I want to say. Was
Rock
it Rock
Allegiance?
Yes, bro.
Yes.
And it was in Chester. Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, it was at the soccer stadium.
On.
Yeah.
Okay.
2016, 2017. It was at the soccer stadium in Chester.
Yeah.
And then that night we went down Philly and got the pizza, the huge one or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I got 2 cheesesteaks. But I saw the Rocky. I don't know. I'm a huge Rocky fan, so I got pretty emotional. I was like, I'm going to go up the steps. And I did, bro. Had to do it.
That's awesome. You got to do it. Yeah. One of our set carps on Slipknot, Paul, he's like the biggest, same thing, like huge Rocky fan. Like I'm pretty sure he's got like replica memorabilia of like the belts and the gloves and everything. Like
real big fan. Yeah.
And I've seen him, like he took some of his family, like whenever we played Philly, that was his day. He's like, normally he'd just be like couch potato in his hotel room. But that day he was like, I'm going. And he was out there at the steps, at the statue. And then I think he actually took his like family, like his brother and his dad or something there, just on a solo Philadelphia trip just to see that stuff and like go to the restaurant that Rocky, all that jazz. So, definitely cool. It spawned a lot of Rocky fans from around the world.
Of course. Yep. All right. So you're doing the thing. Your taste, I could see how it's like developing. When does stuff like After the Burial enter the chat for you, bro?
I feel like, I got into the heavy shit in high school, I guess. Yeah. Where it was like, I had a couple friends, like you start going to Warped Tour and then you're seeing other bands, and there's other bands where it's like, maybe you weren't necessarily into the crazy, because like growing up in my house, like my dad hated like he'd just call it screamo shit, you know, like he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
like
yeah.
it. And we'd all often in a battle of the bands, it would be like us, but then there'd be
Yeah.
another band that's like doing the crabcore thing and like
Hell
trying to
yeah.
like do, you know, so it's like you're up against these other bands where it's like totally different
Yeah.
genres and everybody's just kind of like, you know, scoffing at each other because we
Yeah.
weren't cool, you know. And as like a pop punk band, our like local area, all the other bands were like hardcore, like metal, you know, like screamo bands. And I felt like we used to just we never got invited, or we were never like included because like they do these like house shows or like do these
Okay.
cool shows at VFWs, and like we were never invited because we were like not heavy enough.
It's
Kind of
messed up,
thing.
man.
Yeah, you know, but that it kind of started there, you know, and then you
Yeah.
start going to shows, and like Croc Rock used to bring a lot of bands through, like, you know, I mean, the Devil Wears Prada and
Yeah.
Alisana, and you know, like those guys used to play there all the time. Bless the
Yeah.
Fall, and you know, all these bands that like my buddy and I, we would go get tickets because it's
Sick.
like back when tickets used to be $15,
Yeah.
you know, so it's like most of the money I'd get in the spare, you know, would go to concerts,
Yeah.
you know, and I spent so much of my extra time just going and seeing shows when I could back in like, you know, I guess like 2007, 2008. Like I graduated in 2008. So it was just kind of around that same time of like high school, just like,
Yeah,
you
same.
can drive, you have
Yeah.
your own money, just go, you know, so
Yeah,
just
dude.
go and see shows.
That's sick. Is there like a standout show that you can remember was just like insane? You're like, holy shit.
I mean, like back then it was just like even just crazy to see bands that were like not from our area, where they're
Yeah.
like, yo,
Okay.
we're Blessed to Fall from California. I was like, dude, they're all the way here from California, you know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like clicks with you. Or like I remember seeing I See Stars guys, and I remember
Oh,
hearing the
wow.
bass player talk to someone. He was like, yeah, today's my 18th birthday, and I'm like, this
What?
kid's like touring the country, and he's just, you know, he's just as old, if not younger than I am at the time
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm like, man, like, God, like that's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, like I don't there's just I feel like there was back then there were so many bands, and I used to keep a list of like every band that I'd ever seen. And I remember seeing like there was a festival in Pennsylvania in 2007 I went to called Purple Door.
Okay.
And it's like I guess it's considered like a Christian festival, so there's a lot of like
Yeah.
Christian themed bands, but there was so many metal bands. But like that was the first time I had seen August Burns Red,
Oh,
and it
okay.
was just before like Messengers came out, and I would say
Oh,
that
man.
was one that like that hooked me, you know. And now I've since become friends with them. Like Matt's a good bud, like you know, I
Yeah.
love him, and
That's
he's such a
sick.
phenomenal drummer to watch. But
So
I
cool.
remember it was like a 2-day festival and stayed overnight. And I remember
Yeah.
it was like the morning of one of the shows, and it was fairly early, like 10, 11. They were one of the first bands on.
AM.
And oh yeah, it was like an early,
Oh,
like,
whoa.
you know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
open doors kind of thing. And they're like, all right, well, we're ripping, you know. And I just remember
Wow.
being very dry. And like they started this circle pit where it was like, it just created this like vortex of dirt that just like dust up into the
Damn.
air. And I just never heard anything as like crazy as the shit that August Burns Red was doing. But it
Yeah,
was like
dude.
them and Haste the Day and the
Oh,
Chariot,
wow.
like all
Oh.
big time like heavy bands,
Damn.
you know. And seeing Chariot just go absolutely berserk, it was just
Dude.
like, all right, this is amazing. This is so fun
Oh,
to
it's
watch because
so cool.
you know, it's just like bands were so chaotic and just, you know, all over the place back then, you know. And they're
That's
all
what
doing
I always
it in,
gravitated towards.
yeah,
Like
doing it
how.
in flip flops or just like the tightest
Yeah.
girl jeans you could find. You know,
Yeah.
like these guys are shredding.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was just like, how much can you like move your guitar and still make a sound? I was one of
Right.
people like that.
See
Like,
the dudes doing the
dude.
flips and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Yeah, the Chariot, man.
Yeah.
I was talking to Scott from Johnny Booth. We're back. And yeah, we were talking about the Chariot. What a crazy band, dude. I miss them all the time. But it was
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
yeah.
they have some of the most iconic videos of like them being like, all right, what's up, the Chariot? And then just like them
Dude.
losing their mind, and the bass player just like crowd walks into the and
the
every guy's
bass
just
player,
like,
bro.
just losing their mind, you know, and the hanging.
Oh.
I mean, like when Stevis was in the band,
Dude.
I remember watching him climb the rafters on Warped Tour and just hang upside down 30 feet in the air, like playing guitar, like
Just
madness.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, so Devil Wears Prada was in the other night, and I became good buds. Like Jeremy lives here in Nashville. Love those guys, you know.
Yeah.
Just got to see them. Giuseppe, a blast, and it's like crazy because like that's a band I enjoyed in high school, but like even talking to Jeremy the other night, I think my buddy Pablo had brought up the fact of there's that one video, it's like a parking lot somewhere and it's the Devil Wears Prada playing in the dates and they're just like, what's up, we're the Devil Wears Prada, and then it's just like
that
bing bing and just nuts. Yeah, so it's like an iconic that everyone knows that video.
Dude, that video, man, I've watched that so many times. And they sound so good too. Like I remember being like, this is the sickest thing. Texas is South, dude. Like, yeah, I can't. Oh, that's so sick. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So it's like, I don't know. We lived that. I don't know, that generation of that like tight skinny jean pants, long, straightened hair, like metal, but like I don't know. Everybody, it was sick.
It was sick, dude.
You enjoyed it,
I loved it. Every weekend there was always a show. It was for me like the local bands were Vanna, Therefore I Am, and Lost for Words. Yeah, like that was every weekend they were playing, or like On Broken Wings. If they weren't always like around every weekend, but like them and Black My Heart, those were like the two like tough bands at the time that I was like scared to go to their shows, man, because like the I don't know, FSU guys and all that stuff. I was like, oh, I don't know, that's too much for me. But yeah, man, it was cool. Every weekend you could hang out with your homies and go to a show.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean that's like the Vanna Boys. Like we became good friends with those guys on Warped Tour, and like same thing. Like I remember like getting a sticker of Vanna from back in the day, like at a local CD shop, and not really knowing anything about them. So here we are, like being great friends with those guys. They're awesome. A Lost for Words, Matty Arsenal. Like I loved A Lost for Words, and he became our manager with Paris. And it was
crazy.
just like super small world. Where I remember like being at Best Buy and getting a call, and he's like, "What's up, brother? Like, this is Matty from Lost for Words," and it was like, "Wow, like." I know who you are. Like, that's awesome. Like it's that kind of shit, which just kind of blew my mind, at a younger age, like coming into the industry. And then you realize how small of a world it really is, because everybody has toured with someone or, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Sick, man. Hey, I told you I would ask about this. When did you start drawing? Because you're unbelievable at it, bro. Like,
thank you, man.
Exceptional. And I was curious.
That's kind of been like my entire life kind of thing. I've just always been into drawing. Just at a very young age, I was the kid that just used to like sit on the floor, the piece of like construction paper, or, computer paper, and just drawing away. But it was just something that like always intrigued me. Yeah. And I felt like, I don't know, I just had a good imagination to be able to like visualize what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, and then be able to just like put it to paper kind of thing. So I was that kid like in elementary school, they'd have like an art competition to meet like a local illustrator art or like author illustrator that's going to come to the thing, and I'd always end up winning, and then I'd get to have like ice cream with this like guy that's like an author / illustrator for some book that we looked or read that year. So it was like that, and then you get into middle school, and then same kind of thing where it's like, oh, I got to do the cover for the yearbook, and like and then you get to high school and you're like, oh, there's other people that are also really good at drawing too, and just kind of did that. And then that's really when I like, I don't know, I was always a kid that was doodling and drawing, or I'd like draw on kids' folders and shit in high school, and then just always took it seriously and just always enjoyed it. And then like I went to school for graphic design, but I just never, I don't know, I don't like the computer. I hate the computer. It's like, I don't know, it's the technology thing where it's like for me, like drawing on a piece of pen and like actual paper was just always my thing, trying to use a computer and the technology, it's ever changing and whatnot, where it's like, that's always just been what it is.
What it is.
Pencil and paper, and like, so I've just always enjoyed it. So any kind of free time I get, try to sit down. It's been limited this year, to be honest. It's like I get, I always take my sketchbook with me on tour, but the time is more difficult to find nowadays. Right. You don't have as much downtime. But when I'm at home and I have some downtime, I really try to like sit into it and get into the zone and like put a podcast on and just, rip and just start drawing. So I've been doing it for a while. I love it. It's very fun, and it's kind of therapeutic to sit and just kind of like just get into the like zone out and just kind of like focus in on that. So
it's badass.
Something fun. Yeah.
I know you've done some SJC shells. Did you do your own kit recently? I
didn't get to do my own kit. Like I've always designed, like the first one was that Jurassic Park one that I had designed. I had like done that on the computer with the logo.
Yeah.
And I had sent it to Mike, and Mike was like, dude, I'm making this for you or I'm stealing the idea. And I was like, he's like, I want to make this for you. So I was like, all right. And that's how that started. And then I remember I designed the Harry Potter one, like the same thing, kind of laid it all out and did that.
I was there for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a couple times I've done a few different snare drums where like Mike would send me a snare.
Yeah.
And then
the
I would
owl, wasn't there an owl with trees? Or I remember the
owl,
trees.
the one that you dropped off for me, the owl was we put that on my kick drum.
Yeah.
It was just like we printed, and then there was one I did, but it was like white and black with trees.
I love that one, man. That
I
was
did like
sick.
an eclipse one. I did a bunch of birds, like in each space between the lugs. I did birds. And then the most recent thing I did shortly after the pandemic, and it was 21, was Mike sent me home with like a full drum kit, and a customer had like basically like asked to have like a cherry blossom kit all
That's
over.
what it was.
So that's like I hand painted that one.
That's sick.
I don't paint as much as I do draw, but I still do enjoy it. You know, it's fun, but I just don't have as much precision that I do when I'm drawing. You know, with paint. But it was a blast. Like I had a really fun time doing that whole process of like
so cool.
And it wasn't just a snare drum. Like I got to do the kick. It was like all of the toms and stuff.
I remember. I was like, I think he did a kit, whether it was for someone or his own. That's so sick. Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried translating it to the skin? Because I talked to Mike about this. I was like, bro, do you think Nace could be like a tattoo artist? He's so good.
He's asked me, he's like, dude, I'll let you, like, I've got free space. He's like, just tattoo me. I don't care. I have tattooed a couple people now. My friend was like, dude, I'm buying the machine. I'm sending it to you. You're going to tattoo me and my friends. And I'm like, I've never done this before, but I'll give it a shot, you know, and so I've done like 5 kids in a kitchen where I was just sat there and they're like, what do you want? And they're like, I want the Mexican Eagle. I want this. I want lyrics from this. And I'm like, all right. So, you know, like I hated it. I was just like, this is a miserable experience, but I don't know. I've thought about it, and a lot of people are like, oh, you should tattoo kind of thing, but it's
wait. You forgot. How'd it come out, bro?
I mean, I did not like them, but like everybody loved it. They're like, dude, this is your first time tattooing. There was one like I did. What is that? What's that anime that's like out now? That's like the kid's name's Luffy. They made it with the pirates. I
don't know.
I forget. It's on Netflix. One Piece.
Okay.
It was like the logo for One Piece. It's like a skull with like a hat on.
Yeah.
And I somehow managed to freehand a perfect circle. I was like really impressed with myself, but like. I don't know. I mean, these kids now have it for life, and they were like pumped on it. It was a free tattoo, but it's just like you're in a weird angle in like a kitchen where a kid's like pulling his leg back, and you're just trying to do it.
What do you mean, like these 5 random people, or you knew?
It was just it was my buddy Reds, and it was like him and like 4 of his friends, like local friends, that like 2 of them that he worked with, and then another kid I went to school with, and we just ended. They're just like one by one in the kitchen, just like busting out a couple different ones. So I don't know.
Wow.
Like I'm sure if I took the time to sit and practice it, it's such a different experience than like a pencil, because you have like a thin pencil, and I'm used to gripping this, but then a machine is so like you're wrapping it, and it's super fat, and you're like watching where the needle's going as it's moving a million miles an hour, and then you're like, I don't know, skin. It's like certain hair follicles are like catching you up as you're doing it, and there's the different gauges, and just trying to figure that out as you go, and they weren't that bad. Like I would never walk away thinking anything. It was just like you should get this covered up, but like I don't know. I would need some time. Of course. Yeah, the first thing I did was on a practice piece of skin was just I drew a dick, and I was like, we got it. Like we got this, and it was a really good dick. But like that's what I started with, and then I was like, all right, now I'm going to someone's skin. Here we go.
Wow.
But it's an interesting feeling, and it's vibrating, and just it would take some time to get used to. But I do have it, so it's sat in my closet somewhere. I just haven't really touched it since.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to those 5 lucky people who have a Justin Nace OG tattoo.
Yeah.
Wow. No shit, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. How about this one? It doesn't have to be heavy.
Sure.
What's the best show you've been to? You believe, like you've told yourself, I think this is probably the best show I've ever seen.
Well, I'll start it off with a heavy. I think.
Okay.
I'll start it off there just because like a band that for me is like arguably one of the best live bands ever is Meshuggah. Like it's, seeing that for the first time, it was, we played Rock'em Ring, Rock'em Park in Germany in 2017, I think. And we played the main stage or whatever, like, midday, whatever. It was like a nice, like 3-4 p.m. slot.
That's wild. That's sick.
And in catering that day, dude comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, I just watched you guys. It was amazing." His name's Jimmy. He's Meshuggah's drum tech.
Wow.
Sweetest guy in the world. I've remained friends with him to this day. He's like the best. And I'm glad that like when Meshuggah's done shows with us with Slipknot, and like I've got to hang with him. He's like the biggest sweetheart. And he was like, "Dude, I loved watching you play. I loved Paris. Like, this is amazing. Like,
cool.
Come watch us play later. We're Meshuggah. We're like closing out one of the metal stages." I went with our bass player and our playback at the time, and it was just like life-changing. Like watching them play in their light show, and just like
it's crazy.
It's just sonically one of the best, tightest bands you will ever see.
Dude.
And it's blown my mind ever since. I've gone anytime I've had an opportunity to go see them, whether it's been like back in Philly, I've seen them at festivals. Like I go out of my way to be like, I need to go watch these guys play, because it's just incredible. Like they're just so tight. Thomas Hawk, like just an absolute phenom of a drummer.
It's crazy.
Those guys, just everything they're doing with the time signatures and the syncopation and all that kind of stuff of just like blending it all together. It blows my mind.
And like, so I was a like late bloomer to them. I really first heard them the same year, actually, like 2017. I was at Louder Than Life, I think. And the drummer, I've said this in a couple other podcasts, but Suicide Silence's drummer at the time pulled me. He's like, "Zach, we're gonna go watch Meshuggah." I was like, "Okay." Alex, and dude, I was like, I can't believe like this is Meshuggah, because what he said was, dude, like their sound. He said their sound guy is like no other. Like you have to come listen to this, and it really is true. Like anyone listening that hasn't seen them, it's just like kind of hard to explain how insane it is live. I don't know.
It's like, and even just like their lighting guy has been with them for years. And I remember at the time, it may have changed now with technology and whatnot, but like at the time, I remember being told, they're like, dude, their lighting guy, their tech, he punts the whole show. So he's sitting there on the desk, like it's not time coded to the point where like everything's flashing on its own. Like this dude is sitting there just being like, like he's the one making everything happen and just punting it. Like it just like blew my mind.
That's what they call it, punting.
Yeah, just like because you're just free forming the show and just doing it with your hands. Like it's just like so at the time, just watching this dude like long hair, just like ripping it, and it was just blew my mind.
Yeah, they all look the same in the Meshuggah camp. They all have beards and long hair. It's kind of epic, except the singer, I guess. But
but it's just like I don't know, just the mixture of like the front of house being an absolute like machine of a sound, like just audio engineer. The band is just so tight, and the lighting all together. Like when you watch what's like Future Breed Machines, the breakdown in that song, just like and it's just like and then it gets into that part where it's the guitar solo, just like dude. It's just chaos, and the lights are going. You're just like, dude, I am in a different realm right now, experiencing music. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. And so they became like such a big part of like my gym playlist, like, or it's not even a playlist. I'll just put on Meshuggah like mix, like just what's it called? Shuffle. I don't care what it is, because I know it's going to be sick. But I do love, they kind of close with it as of lately. I don't know how to say it. Demurge.
Yes.
Dude, that song, it's not like their most technical, but it is so groovy and just so heavy.
That breakdown. I mean, I've like done covers of that breakdown. Just like, bow.
Oh, dude. I love you, dude. Yeah, dude.
Just a cymbal catch. Like, dude, it's sick. Yeah.
That part. And then it gets like the riff after that part. But dude, I can't get enough of that, because I'm like, this is heavy. When someone asks me like, show me a heavy song, I will show them that song.
For sure.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. They have like I mean, their whole and it's a band that's been, I feel like they blew up more again. Like there was a second coming of like some of their like was with that Wolf of Wall Street video, and then using like Rational Gaze, and it's I don't know, it's like it became an internet meme of just like Leonardo DiCaprio, like so I feel like that brought more rise to it, but like it's a band that's been around since the 90s,
Yeah, dude.
playing
It's
music that was
really
just beyond
crazy.
every other band that's been out there,
It's the
and like,
first gen. Like I'm pretty
yes.
convinced. Like like after the burial, like there are breakdowns. I'm like, this is straight from Meshuggah, which is fine. Like obviously it would be because they were the best. But I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, you guys clearly like Meshuggah. This is awesome.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
know, of
So many metalcore bands that, definitely have taken
course.
nods from
Yeah,
bands
man.
like that have been around and just been, staples in
Yeah,
the heavy world, and it's just like,
damn right.
I feel like they deserve the most praise. Like that's a band that, like I said, every time I've seen them, it's just been jaw dropping. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like you're just watching something outer, out of body experience
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. It's awesome.
Another planet.
I
All right, so
love it.
that's your best
Yeah.
heavy show. What's the best
Yeah.
show in general?
I mean, like seeing Blink again back
Yeah,
together last year,
yeah.
I got to see them
Okay.
twice. It was awesome. Like that was a great one. Friends of ours had gotten us like we had bought tickets, and when I was in Japan with Slipknot, we ran into our other
Hmm.
friend James, and then he ended up like when we went to Maryland, we got like wristbands to go, and we got to sit in the pit and watch
Oh
Blink 182
man,
from like 15 feet away. So
that's
that was
crazy.
definitely like an experience I'll never forget, and get to do it
Yeah,
with some of my best friends and my
yeah.
brother and his wife. Like it was awesome to experience that, just singing along every
Of
single song.
course.
Like that's a band. Like I'm terrible with lyrics as a drummer. I focus on the drums, and
Yeah,
I feel like when it comes lyrically, I forget so much or just don't understand lyrics. But like Blink 182 is a band that I know every single song,
yeah,
and I could sing every song, and it's just that's one for me that like was the childhood hero band. So like that was a big concert that was really cool.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I've seen some other bands that have like, I mean, I just recently, not that, but like sonically, I just saw a Maggie Rogers show. Whoever
Yeah.
their front of house is, chef's kiss.
Killed
Because I
it.
don't really know much about her at all, but
Yeah.
like, great live show. Um, Seeing Foo Fighters, we
Hmm.
played. That was also yeah, it might have been Rock and Ring, Rock and Park, or Reading
Cool.
and Leeds, and seeing Foo Fighters play, and like I got the opportunity to stand side stage and just watch like
Wow.
Taylor and Dave, the way that like Dave would just turn around and look at him, and they're just I don't know, they just be able to like at a drop of a hat
Yeah.
turn and like pivot and be like, all right, we're gonna start here, all just based off of like body movement
That's
and language
crazy.
between each other. It was just like something really cool to experience and like see that happen,
Yeah.
live, and just be so close to somebody that like such idols, and just
Yeah.
like it's like,
That's
man, I
epic,
love
man.
Dave from Nirvana and like that kind of thing, and just seeing a band that's so tight but not have like they're just rock and roll, like no
Yeah.
click track, no backing tracks, all that kind of stuff. It's just here's a bunch of dudes that are just good at their instruments, and you know
So
are just
cool.
put on an awesome show.
True rock
um
stars, man.
yeah,
I
I
think about
mean,
that. I'm like, man, Foo
yeah,
Fighters, those guys are like the truth.
yeah, yep,
R.I.P. Taylor.
yeah,
Wow.
man. So I
It's a
mean,
good
that was
list.
I've been very. I mean, same with Muse. Like when we did the tour with those guys, again, that's a band that like every night those guys sounded like the record, like just
Yeah.
so on point and just so good at what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a band that's same thing, has spanned generations of different different, I don't know. I mean, like I remember first hearing of them and back in high school, and like not really knowing much about it, but being like, oh, this is like different,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
having almost like a, not like a symphonic, but like kind of like almost like a orchestral, like kind of theater vibe of like some
Yeah.
sort of like you're putting on like almost like theater music when they're
Yeah.
playing for some of their songs, and very like orchestrated, and just I don't know, it's different,
It's
like it could
cool.
be soundtracks to a movie kind of thing,
Right.
like but yeah, those guys, another band that was great to see. I don't know, I have a tough time I could sit being like this concert's awesome,
Yeah.
this concert's awesome. It's
Yeah.
hard to pick one,
Of
because there's
course.
just been so many, and with over the years of touring with not only with Paris, like we played bands, opened up for Bring Me the Horizon, which is on the heavier side,
Hmm.
but then we opened up for like Fall Out Boy and Muse, which is totally different spectrum, and
Yeah.
30 Seconds to Mars. So like seeing that kind of thing, and then what I've been teching with with Slipknot for 3 years, you get to see all these icons like Judas
Yeah.
Priest and Iron Maiden, or uh, I don't know, Dave Mustaine out there doing
Crazy.
his thing. It's just like you're
Crazy.
getting to see everything. So it's like you get to see the other side of like the heavy bands and shit, and you get to, you know, experience such cool, epic, you know, rock
Yeah, man.
bands from all different kinds of genres. It's hard to like pick
Of
pick
course.
one, you know. But I'm
Valid.
very thankful that I've like gotten the opportunity to be amongst some of those, you know, shows and experiences and stuff, and
Yeah.
see like some of the big, you know, festivals and rock concerts and stuff, or you know,
Yeah.
watching Metallica play multiple times the
Yeah,
other
I'm
year.
lucky.
Just like, oh yeah,
Them and
you know,
Blink are the two for me I haven't seen yet.
yeah,
It's crazy. It's cool, man.
yeah,
As someone who I assume has had their passport stamped, like I feel like a lot when I think about you. Someone like, man, he's been like all over the world multiple
yeah.
times. Do you have a?
I'm on my second passport. That's
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
for
Yeah.
sure. Any city or country you're always excited to go back to that you just love? You like you want days off there?
Sure. I mean, I love the UK. It's always had a
Yeah,
soft spot in my heart, so I
yeah,
definitely enjoy. You know, and there's so many different beautiful cities.
of
You know,
course.
not only from like London to like small like countryside one, like Bath was beautiful. Having an off day there, so like,
Cool.
you know, that's definitely a big part that I mean, I love the
Mm-hmm.
UK. Japan's probably one of my top favorites. It's just it's such a different experience than any other place, where it's
Yeah.
just um, I don't know. It's so clean. It's so everybody's so welcoming. It's just such a different vibe, you know, and it's a culture shock the first time going there, because it's not like, you know, you could go to places in Europe and everything just uses letters, but then when you go to Japan, they have symbols for their letters or words together, and you're
Right.
just like, it's so outer worldly, but yet everybody's so kind and welcoming. Like, you know, the difference between rocking up to a place in Kansas and playing a theater to a bunch of like, you know, no offense, but like, you know, dudes that are out there taking cigarette breaks as like local hands that like couldn't give two shits about you and your band,
Yeah.
versus like showing up to like, I remember we did Summer Sonic in Japan once,
Oh
and I
man.
set up all my drums, and that day, like the local hands were like, "Can we like mark off on the rug your like kit?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah." Because then we had the next day, they would travel with the same gear. I got there the next day, they had my whole kit set up with like all my symbols in the right places. I was just like,
Wow.
"How?" You know, and that's just because they give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it's just it's beautiful. Like,
It's
and the
sick.
cities are huge. They're, and especially Tokyo itself, but like beautiful countryside. You know, doing flying in between cities or doing the bullet train. Like, it's
Wow.
just my favorite coffee shop in the world is in Tokyo that
What's
I've
it called?
found, and like it's Coffee Mamea.
Wow.
It's it's hard to explain, but it's like you go outside and you'd easily pass it any other day because there's no branding, no sign outside. You wouldn't know, but it's a little square opening, and you walk in, little bonsai tree in one corner, and you go inside, and it's just super simplified, very like,
Hmm.
you know, I wouldn't say like brutalist, but like in a sense where it's like pretty
Yeah.
much like a concrete room with just roasts of coffee from like light to dark, all in one color. But these guys are the most scientific people about, like, he sat there and explained everything, the science between like timing it out perfectly, and the timing of
Wow.
beans and the roast, and when they're meant to be, you know, like when you should grind it or how shortly you should grind it or the thickness. And like when I bought a bag,
Wow.
you know, they're like, cool, how do you make it? And I said, French press. And he's like, all right, so you're going to do all this. Here's your measurements. Here's the water. Here's the time that you're doing it. And then you're going to French, no press. So he's like, you're French, don't press. So he's like, because this is how you're going to do it with this
Wow.
specific kind of bean that you bought. Like, it's beautiful. Like, such a cool
That is cool.
experience to be there. You know, so like, there's just so many things about
Yeah.
Japan that I love.
I've
But
heard many, yeah, other
Japan,
artists love
Prague is
artists.
another one, you know, like Prague's beautiful. Czech Republic, just like
Yeah.
wandering around, it's a beautiful, the architecture, a lot, you know, European cities just have something that we don't have here, you know, where they like
Yeah.
seem to kind of care about. I mean, granted, also they have buildings that exceeded the age of our country, but
For real.
also, you know, but just having like a care for history and
Yeah.
preserving history, whereas here it's like, well, we could knock it down and put on like a, you know, a
Yeah.
duplex and condos and a strip mall, you know, where it's
Yeah.
like, there it's like, cool, you're looking at something that's hundreds of years old,
Yeah.
you know, and
15th
just,
century or whatever. Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy,
you
man.
know, and like some of these cathedrals that are just hand carved, and
Oh,
just, it's beautiful. It's a stunning thing. And like for me, you know, being into photography, it's like
yeah.
traveling around Europe and just going out with my, you know, camera. It was like we'd wake up. Jim's guitar tech, Brad, is like my best bud. Like when we were out with Slipknot, we just like get up, go get coffee, and just wander around, you know. And
Yeah.
like we'd put miles in every day, just like, you know, exploring cities and stuff. So it's like
Absolutely.
I've been to, I think, like 44 or 45 countries now at this point, just
Wow.
through music. And I'm, wouldn't trade it for anything. It's, there's plenty of downsides and things that people don't see, when it's like, oh yeah, but you're like, you're rocking. It's like your party. It's like, no, it's not necessarily a party. There's things that you miss, loved ones that you don't get to see as often, or family members you don't see, or you miss out on a lot of the, the birthdays and the weddings and things like that, where you do the best you can to make to some of them. And some things it's just like, there's nothing you could do. And that's the downside, or just the crazy time schedules of no sleep and whatnot. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm thankful for the stuff that I've seen, like as a kid in high school, never thinking like looking at stuff in textbooks and being like, okay, but then actually getting to see some of the stuff in person, you're like, wow, like I never thought I'd ever be here,
Seen a lot more than a lot of people, bro. That's cool. And then tomorrow you're heading to Brazil. You've been there before though, right?
I've been twice now.
Nice.
It's funny because like 22 December of 22 was the first time I was there. We went with Slipknot, which was crazy because obviously the fans are
crazy,
awesome,
right?
I mean, even when we played with Paris, we had Twitter accounts and people being like, come to Brazil, like it was just like, and we'd never even been there, but then like we go down to I think we were in Argentina, like in Chile, and I met Paris fans that were outside of, like, I'm getting photos from like Jay's wife of like kids wearing Paris shirts outside of Slipknot's hotel room, like looking for me, and we'd never even played a show there,
wild,
and like
bro.
the sweetest people. So it's just like they have such a great culture of like music and just loving bands, because they don't get the opportunity to be able to see and experience bands where the States, it's like, oh well, this band will be here in another 6 months, like it's definitely not, I mean, you could say to a sense jaded, because it's like we have it so easy where you get to like everything's just kind of here, and bands tour here often, but some people like in South America or Brazil or like in Japan, they have like diehard fans because they don't get the opportunity to see bands as much, so they like don't take it for granted, they really do enjoy it. So it was cool. I mean, such a great experience, and like I'll be going down to a subsidiary of Sao Paulo called Porto Alegre. That's where my girlfriend is from. Like excited,
cool.
See some hometown stuff, because done Porto Alegre or done Sao Paulo earlier this year, and then did like Rio and Sao Paulo in 22, and got to like see those cities and stuff. And I don't know, it's great. It's awesome.
Really awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave it at that, my bro. I hope you have a fantastic time.
Yeah, thank you very much, man.
Some travel for yourself this time. Yeah. That's cool, man. And dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was fun, dude.
Thank you for having me, dude. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you all day. It's been so long since I've had the opportunity to see you, dude. And I was chatting with someone the other night, or I think it was my buddy TJ, because he was there when you dropped the kid off in like Rhode Island, and he remembered you. I was like, I told him that I was doing this today. He's like, oh yeah, he's the one that dropped the kid. I was like, you were there when I got my current drum set that I have.
Yeah, dude.
So
at Lupo's. Hell yeah, man. I'm still around there. I still go there. It's a good venue.
Awesome.
That's cool, bro. Well, again, thank you. Safe travels, dude. I will hopefully talk to you and maybe see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much, dude. I really do appreciate it, brother.
Later.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.